Yeah, I think it's always wise to go back and say, what is my definition of success? Is it that I just want to publish this and hand it to my grandkids? That's a very valid thing, and a lot of people do that. But for me, I want to put the books in hands of lots of kids. I want international distribution whenever possible. So you can have a wide range. So first of all, yeah, you've got to write a great manuscript that matches the age range. You always have to think about board books for little tiny kids is one thing versus novels for the 18-year-old. So you have to match up the story with the right format. The age 7 to 10 is going to be maybe 25,000 to 40,000 words, so they're shorter. And the 18-year-olds, you can do any length you want. Yeah, so you got to match it up to the age range. And then if you're going to do children's picture books, yeah, you got to think about the art. How are you going to put the art in, and where are you going to get an illustrator and all of that?
Welcome to the Stark Reflections on Writing and Publishing podcast. There has never been a better time for writers. More information, options, and opportunities are available to you, but navigating these requires insight. Join Mark Leslie Lefebvre as he draws upon more than a quarter century of experience as a writer, a bookseller, and a trusted book industry consultant to explore and reflect on the writing and publishing landscape to help you make informed choices on your writer journey.
Hello, Reflectives, and welcome to episode 454 of the Stark Reflections podcast. This is your host, Mark Leslie Lefebvre. Today's episode, I have an interview with Darcy Pattison. Darcy Pattison is passionately curious about her world, and she brings that passionate curiosity to real and imaginary worlds, writing books that bring the worlds into focus for kids who also want to know, who need to know more. Her books have received starred Publishers Weekly, Kirkus, and BCCB reviews, and her awards include an Irma Black Honor, 5 NTSA Outstanding Science Trade Books, 2 Eureka Nonfiction Honors, 2 Junior Library Guild Selections, 2 NCTE Notable Children's Book in Language Arts, and a Notable Social Studies Trade Book. She has many, many accolades. We talk about her career writing, how it's evolved. We talk about her book that's coming out in January of 2026 called Publish to Find Surprising Success, Self-Publishing Your Children's Book, and that's coming up later in this episode. First, I'm going to roll a bumper and get into the other pre-interview stuff. So I'm sitting here in a hotel room in just north of Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. I spent the day driving down here. I'm going to be meeting up with my buddy Kevin Anderson, and we are going to be attending Bubba Bash this weekend, which is a Rush-themed a bunch of tribute band, as well as a whole bunch of musicians who love and adore and worked with Neil and knew Neil, and are basically playing Rush songs in a Rush concert as a fundraiser for the brain cancer that took Neil from us, 6 years ago. This week, it was just yesterday, January 7th, 6 years ago, that the world lost the professor, Neil Peart, who was the drummer and the lyricist for Rush, a dear friend of Kevin Anderson, and so many of these musicians who are here this weekend. I've been going to Bubba Bash. This is my third year. I've been joining Kevin for this. It is an absolutely incredibly wonderful time. I've made some great friends here. And so I spent the day, it's roughly about anywhere between 8 and 10 hours, depending on how many times you stop to get coffee, go to the bathroom, fill up the car, to get from where I live to Pennsylvania. And of course, in all the packing, I always forget something. I forgot to pack my portable microphone because I knew I was going to be recording the intro and the outro stuff. I'd already edited the interview, but I needed to do the additional bits. And I thought, I'll get that done in the hotel room Thursday night. And of course, as I'm unpacking the car, I realize, oh man, I know exactly where that microphone is. So I'm going to forego a lot of the introductory content because I don't have that really good mic. Yeah, I could use my 11 Labs voice, but I really would rather just get this completed because I'm kind of tired. I want to get a little bit of reading done so I can go to bed, get up early and write. So, and I did actually also release an episode of the podcast earlier this week, and I'll get caught up with comments and personal updates and all that fun stuff in next week's episode. So, without further ado, I'm going to roll the main bumper and we're going to get into the main content, which is this conversation with Darcy. And now I should warn you this is one of many backlist episodes with Darcy, and I went to release it about a month ago. And I realized a month ago it was still too late for the Kickstarter she was talking about, because this was one I had done with her in the summer and was in the backlog. And I think I pushed it aside because I wanted to wait until the fall, and then it didn't happen in the fall. But then I realized, oh, why don't I wait until January to put this one out? Because that's when the book is now available. So she will, in the interview, talk a little bit about the Kickstarter, and that's in the past. But the book does come out in January 2026, which is why I timed it thusly. All right, let's roll that bumper. Hey, Darcy, welcome to the Stark Reflections podcast.
Thank you. So glad to be here.
It's great to chat with you again. I guess I saw you in Philadelphia. Oh my God, how long ago was that now? 2 months ago?
Yes, it was in the summer and at the ALA convention. That was great fun.
And so we talked about several things, including like some of the awards and success that you've had with children's books, which is amazing. I was in the back of the room while you were talking, and you blew my mind. So I'm excited to talk. But okay, so for my listeners, I know I've already sort of read a brief biography of you, but just a little bit of a background on who is Darcy Pattison.
Yes, I'm a children's book author. Long ago, I decided children's books was it for me. I know it's not as profitable, it's more difficult. The audience is harder to reach because
Wait, you're painting a really good picture that this is an easy thing to do.
Yeah. You have to go through parents or teachers, I know, but it's just where my passion is. I just want to put books in the hands of kids. So I have been working at it with my own publishing company for about 13 years, and I have 70 books.
Wait, 13 years and 70 books.
Yes.
Wow. Okay, I don't know where to start, except maybe to say, with that many books, I imagine, are you also an illustrator, or do you write the stories?
I am not an illustrator, and that's actually one reason I can do this is because I will write a picture book and then I hand it off to the illustrator. They go off and do their work for 6 or 12 months. And then they hand me back the finished illustrations.
So you're like churning out the manuscript or the text, and then
Yes.
they're adding that. How many different illustrators have you worked with over the years?
Oh, I've tried to count it, probably 25.
Okay.
So each book needs its own look.
Right.
However, I just got back from Great Britain where I met with an illustrator. Finally, I got to meet him, and he's done 12 books with me.
Oh,
So
wow.
when it
Okay.
works, it works. He's done this
Yeah.
entire series called Moments in Science. They're picture books about
Yes.
a moment when something strange happens in science. So he's
Yeah.
done 12 of them, and his art is the look of that series. If he ever decides to stop, then the series stops.
Well, and that sounds like that'd be a great series for school
Yeah,
librarians and for
it does really
teachers.
well. Yeah.
Okay. I think I'm all over the place because I have so many questions to talk about. I want to go back to, so you are in January of 2026. You were releasing a book called Publish, Find Surprising Success Self-Publishing, your children's books.
Yes.
Assuming this is a book based on your 13 years of experience.
Yes. So after 13 years and many webinars and teaching all over the place, it was time to collect everything together. I also have a website, indiekidsbooks.com. So all of that has fed into this book. It is the current state of publishing for children's books, if you're doing it independently, and
Yeah.
how to navigate the maze.
So one of the first questions I have, and this is always a challenge because when you look at the tools that are there, whether it's vellum, whether it's using draft digital print or sigil or calibra or any of easily accessible and or free tools to make EPUBs. Readsy, all the
Right.
places where you can instantly spit out a beautiful adult text reflowable book.
Right.
Those resources don't really exist for kids books authors, or do they? And I just don't know about them.
They do not. So everything I do, I study everything that anybody says about independently publishing, but it's like it's a foreign language.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I have to translate everything to children's books. So yes, I do novels for kids. And for those, I use Vellum or any other of the
Yeah.
free programs that you would use. But for the picture books, when you're going to add lots of art to the story, then you've got to use InDesign, or there are cheaper alternatives, but InDesign is the standard for the industry.
And so, did you teach yourself InDesign, or is that where you outsource that and you can just get somebody to do that layout for you?
Through many tears and trials and failures, I have learned InDesign. And
Okay.
I'm glad I did because I just sold a 9 book series to a Chinese publisher. And what the international publishers expect is InDesign files.
Really?
Yes, they
They
want the
want the
InDesign
finished,
files.
but what about the translation? Oh, so that's going to be maybe the art without the text, and they're going to apply the
Yes,
text? Okay.
yes, yes. So the InDesign file includes the art plus the text. So they will just replace the text.
Okay, so I want to get into how you sold this translation. So let's park that one because I
Okay.
that sounds a little bit too advanced for someone like me who's just figuring this out and learning. For somebody who has a kid's book and they're interested in what's one of the first steps? Is the first step finding an illustrator, or what do you've got your completed manuscript? What's
Yeah,
next?
I think it's always wise to go back and say, what is my definition of success? Is it that I just want to publish this and hand it to my grandkids? That's a very valid thing, and a lot of people do that.
Right.
But for me, I want to put the books in hands of lots of kids. I want international distribution whenever possible. So
Okay.
you can have a wide range. So first of all, yeah, you've got to write a great manuscript that matches the age range.
Right.
You always have to think about board books for little tiny kids is one thing versus novels for the 18-year-old. So you have
Okay.
to match up the story with the right format. And it could be novels for ages 7 and up. The age 7 to 10 is going to be maybe 25,000 to 40,000 words. So they're
Okay.
shorter.
All right.
The 18-year-olds, you can do any length you want. Yeah, so you got to match it up to the age range. And then if you're going to do children's picture books, yeah, you got to think about the art. How are you going to put the art in and where are you going to get an illustrator and all of that?
So where does one start? Are there platforms where, you can find these professionals to work with, or how did you find your
Yes.
illustrators?
Yeah, I find them a lot of places. There's a organization called the Society of Children's Book Writers and Illustrators,
Oh,
scbwi.org.
great organization, yeah.
Yeah. And they've got online, it's not behind a paywall. Anybody can look at it. They have portfolios from their illustrator members, and you can
Oh
look at
wow.
that. Or Adobe is the main software that people use to create children's books or to do art like Photoshop, uh,
Right.
all that kind of thing. And they have a social media platform for illustrators. It's
Really?
called behance.net, BEHANCE.net. And people from around the world put their portfolios there, not just for children's books, but for, I don't know, product design and packaging and all kinds of things. But I find a lot of people there. Great
Wow.
portfolios.
Oh, that's fantastic. Okay, cool. And then again, you said something earlier, and I made a note of it. So you talked about, board books for like really young people, and then but then so you've got usually with adult novels, just to
Yes.
make it simpler, you've got like paperback is usually a standard format, and then
Yes.
ebook. Now, I know it's going to be a reflowable ebook, EPUB for picture books as well. But what about the formatting? Because we have choices and options like go hardcover, paperback, and stuff like that. But you're now probably doing color interiors, which are expensive.
Yes.
But
Yes.
then, so paperback, hardcover, pretty standard. And then whether you have a jacket or not, that's available through Ingram Spark and other
Sure.
platforms. But is there a way to do board books that like through the standard, or do you have to find someone who does that?
So if you want to do a board book, and that would be for ages like maybe up to 2 or 3 years old.
Right.
So really you're targeting parents there. It's only offset. There is no POD printer that does that.
Okay. So
Yeah.
you found an offset printer to do those kinds of books, or have you just avoided that?
There is one in the US called Pint Size Productions, and they do, if you look at board books, most people know the name Sandra Boynton, and they do
Heard
her
of her,
books.
yes.
Yes, they do her books.
Wow. Okay.
So that is in the US. And then other than that, you've got to go overseas.
Wow. Okay. I was just curious about that
Very
because,
specialized.
yeah, I mean, my granddaughter's of that age that board
Yes,
books are the most appropriate. Now I know I've got other books for her, knowing she's not going to read them till she's 5 or 6,
sure. Yeah, yeah.
but because I can't help it. But the idea of a board book is very appealing, especially because, I remember
Oh,
when
yeah.
my son was little, he was pretty rough with those things.
Yes, for that age, that sturdy cardboard is what you need. Yeah, but
Yeah.
it is a specialized both marketing and printing, because you can only hit the parents, and guess what? Those parents age out really fast.
Yeah.
So you've only got them for a year or two, and then you got to go find new parents. So it's a very hard market.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, because it's a very limited time frame. Whereas
Yeah.
some of the other books you can, I mean, I still go back and I love rereading
Oh
stuff.
yeah.
Well, to my granddaughter that I used to read to my son. Yay, I can get back
Yes,
into this
yes,
again. Yay. So
yes.
glad I kept so many of them.
Yeah, so that's one reason why, just in general, I prefer to target teachers because then they don't age out quite as fast. I mean, they will sometimes go from first grade to teaching fourth grade or something,
Yeah.
but generally they're more stable and you can keep them for a longer time.
So do you use the same distribution platforms that an author of novels would use, or are there different ones that are more, I mean, Ingram Spark for print, I imagine, is the best. Can you do
Yes.
some of those direct with KDP?
I do KDP, I do Ingram Spark, and then I have a Shopify store, and Lulu is the back end of it.
Ah, okay. And so the Lulu is you just did the same files that you've generated, but now that's your store and they
Yeah,
ship.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, they're slightly different files, but yeah, it's a minor correction for that. So I do those three, but what I really key in into is there are education distributors. And so the education
Um,
distributors, their market is the school district. So that would be Follett and Mackin and Brodart, and so they're targeting libraries and schools. And that means that on Ingram, I need to give a 55% discount because they've got to have a discount too. So
right.
Ingram will take
So
their
you're saying
discount.
Ingram Spark distributes through Follett when the
Yes,
discount
Ingram's
is high enough.
Follett will order from Ingram.
Okay.
Yeah, so if they only have that 40% discount, they don't have enough of an incentive to, yeah,
Right.
pass the book
Yeah,
on.
well, because Ingram's pocketing about 13 to 15% there.
Yes,
So that's why that Follett wants the full 40, I
yes,
imagine. Okay.
yes.
All right.
Yeah, so those distributors are really important. And the only way to reach them that I know of is Ingram.
So
So
yeah, it's
you
not like
must
you
be with
create
Ingram.
an account with Brodart or any of these places. They actually use
Yeah,
Ingram.
I
Okay.
have done that before. I've created an account with Follett, but then it's really hard to keep track of with print on demand. If I
Right. Yeah.
was offset printing, it might be easier, but print on demand, every other week you've got to order new books because they ordered one of this one and 10 of this one, and you only had eight of
Oh,
this
I
one.
see. Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's really hard to keep track of. So it's
So
just easier to let them order from Ingram.
okay, cool. And then but perception, misperception, with people who write thrillers and romance and science fiction, fantasy, stuff like that, adult novels or even YA. A lot of the sales are going to be ebook, and print is kind of like an afterthought for a lot of indie authors. Is
Yes.
it the opposite? Are
Yes.
ebooks the afterthought and print books are the main thing for
Yes.
younger?
So the main market is paperback.
Okay.
However, I do use Ingram, and probably 25 to 30% of my sales on Ingram are hardcover for libraries and schools.
Hardcover for, oh, and so that's because the hardcover is more durable, probably, right? So they
Yes.
can loan it out n numerous times before it
Yes.
wears out. Okay.
Yeah. So paperback's my main. Most people who sell on KDP, it's paperbacks.
Okay.
However, there are there's a very low market for ebooks for kids if you're selling one to one.
Yeah.
However, the reading apps is where the money is.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yes. So these are apps that will you sign up for $10 a month, and then you have access to 20,000 books, 30,000 books, whatever.
Oh, wow.
So I have one series, A Little Bit of Dinosaur, that has been read 6.6 million times.
And what app is this that it's been read on?
The Epic app, EPIC exclamation point. You should get this for your granddaughter.
Epic app. Oh, wow.
Yes, I'm serious. You have access to 30 or 40,000 books, and
And then what, they read it on a tablet or something like that,
they
or
would read it on a tablet or on a phone. And I get pennies per read, but at 6.6 million reads,
I'd say, yeah, 6.6 million pennies.
it's a lot of pennies.
Yeah, that's a lot
So,
of pennies.
so my grandson said to me, he's third grade, and he said, "My class read your book on Epic." He said, "I made you a quarter."
That's fantastic. Hey, that's
Yeah.
just, but again, it all adds up. It's these micropayments that can really make a difference, right?
Yes. So there are other apps besides that, but they don't have quite the reach yet. If I see a new app for kids, I'm always signing up because you never know which one's going to take off
Right.
and do really well. So there's one out of Cyprus called Booka, Booka. I'm on that
Okay.
one. Yeah, I try to do all the apps that I can.
Oh, that's fantastic. And so you can create a direct author account with Epic, with Booka, etc., right?
Epic is closed to people unless you have a backlist of 50.
Oh, so you have to actually be a publisher like you are
Yeah,
with 75 or more titles.
yeah, yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
And they can't just be, hey, I have, 50 adult novels and one kids book, right? I'm
No, no,
assuming it's all kids books. Okay.
it's all kids' books. Yeah.
And that's probably because they just don't want to deal with one-offs, right?
Oh, exactly. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
it's just not cost effective.
So that's Epic and Booka, or
No, Booka you can go to. Yeah, most people can
yeah.
go to them.
Okay.
Yeah.
This is cool. I imagine in your book you probably talk about some of these platforms in more detail,
Yes.
right? Yeah, of course. Yeah, so that people can check that out. So that's one of the misperceptions. The other thing is, so places like BookBub, like marketing, like I'm going to use BookBub. Are tools like that, the marketing newsletters, are those useful for children's authors?
Sometimes it just depends on your book and your audience. It doesn't always for anybody. It always depends. So I have done BookBub and done pretty well. I don't make profits, but I move free books.
Right,
So sometimes I'll put a book one of a novel series or a short chapter book series as free, and
right.
then do a book bub, and it does move it, and I do get sell-throughs, but it's not the the hot ticket that it is for adult stuff.
So I was just curious that if you ran them and you didn't really get a lot of ebook sales, but maybe people see the print book and go, "Ooh, let's get that instead," because they become aware of it. Does that happen? Do you see a
Yeah, that's
trend?
what you're hoping for, and you do get some crossover like that, but it's not particularly cost effective. But if I have a series that's kind of languishing and not doing too much, sometimes I'll run it through those. And then Fussy Librarian, and you have to pick and choose which of the discount newsletters you go with. But
Right. So
yeah,
how about, I mean, the cost to produce color is pretty substantial. I mean,
yes,
so you can't be doing bargain basement pricing. You're going to actually have to price
no,
it reasonably
yeah. So for
respectable.
ebooks, I can still do
Yeah.
very low. Although I don't know if you know, but Amazon actually charges 15 cents a meg download fees.
Oh yeah, they do. Yeah. And
Yes.
so on those books, you're never getting 70%. I mean, you're never
Well,
getting 70% from Amazon ever
actually,
because
I've
they charge,
manipulated
yeah.
it enough to where I can get very low file sizes, like 4 megs, but
Really?
but it's a specialized thing that on my blog, indiekidsbooks.com, there's an article about doing that.
Okay,
But if
cool.
you just don't pay attention and you do a 20 meg book, you're in trouble. You're losing money like crazy unless you do that
Right.
35% option.
Yeah, and so these are those hidden fees that, again, for the standard novel that's
Yeah.
text reflowable, who cares? It's not going to be that big unless it's a
No,
Brandon
25 cents at
Sanderson
the most.
sized, yeah,
Yeah.
phone
Yeah.
book of
20
a,
cents. Who cares?
Yeah.
But for us, the children's books world, we have to really pay attention to those file sizes.
So you said there was an article on your blog that actually explains this, and I'll want to make sure I include a link to that in the show
Yeah,
notes.
I can do that.
Awesome, thank you. So, but that's still a substantial cost. Now, do you, when you collaborate with an illustrator, do you pay them up front, or do you do some sort of royalty sharing with them?
My contracts are usually work for hire. Yeah, so I pay them up front.
So you just say, here's your money. Thank you so much for working with me. And then they're happy because they got paid for the project, whether or not you sell a book.
Right,
Right. So that's
right,
the risk that you take as the publisher.
right.
Okay. So,
Yeah,
but you've
that's
been so hang on. I'm going to just read some of the awards. Okay. So, Irma Black Honor. You got five NSTA Outstanding Science Trade Books, um, two Eureka Nonfiction Honors, two Junior Library Guild selections, two NCTE Notable Children's Book and Language Arts, and a Notable Social Studies Trade Book. I mean, whoa, this is a list of a whole bunch of awards, most of which I've never heard of because I'm not in
sure.
this area. But how do you? Oh, wait a second. And Starred Reviews on Publishers Weekly, Kirkus, and BCC. What's BCCB?
Bulletin for the Center of Children's Books.
Oh, well, that's good. Okay, so you've got starred reviews on these platforms. Let's go back to these starred reviews. That's not something that just happened because you're brilliant and everyone loves your stuff. You actually had to work to get those, right?
Well, you submit them to the publishing review
But you had
journals.
to find them, and then in some cases you had to pay to submit. Is that how that works?
Yes, so Kirkus pretty much charges everyone except the big guys for their reviews.
Right,
If I was doing adult books, I could care less if I got those reviews. But in the children's book world, the reviews are really important for the librarians who have to spend taxpayers' money to purchase books for their library.
right.
So they want multiple reviews whenever possible. So
Right.
I do pay for a Kirkus review and have
Okay.
gotten 2 or 3 stars from them.
Okay.
And so, you just send it in, they do what they do.
Yeah. They do
Yeah.
an honest review, so there's no
Yes.
guarantee that it's going to be glowing. It's just that, yes, we'll review it.
Right. Right.
Okay.
Yes, I've gotten a couple of starred reviews from them. And then I also send to Book List, that's American Library Association Review Journal. I send to School Library Journal. Associated with School Library Journal, they're both part of Media Source, is the Junior Library Guild.
Right.
And that is like a book club for libraries. And that's pre-publication sales if you get that. So I've done that a couple
Right.
times. So the thing is, what I'm doing is I'm looking at the children's book world and I'm
Yeah.
asking librarians, where do you buy books?
Right.
What do you care about? They care about the reviews. So I
Right.
have to get those reviews.
Right.
Again, if I was doing an adult book,
Yeah.
then no, it doesn't matter.
Well, it's almost like I need to have an illustrator. I need to have a review. That's just part of the process. Right? You can't,
Yes.
I mean, you can do it without, just like you can publish a book and give one to your
Yes.
granddaughter and you're
Yes.
happy, right? Like if
Yeah.
that's
And
your
so
goal.
the other thing, early in this journey, I sat and looked at organizations. So you can become a associate member of the American Booksellers Association. And if you
Okay.
do that, you have access to certain marketing programs. They send boxes of promos to bookstores and stuff. But that's not my market. I don't
Yeah.
really sell to bookstores. I sell to schools and libraries.
Right.
So instead, the Children's Book Council is an organization out of New York, and they really target schools and libraries because they do most of the teacher awards. The
Right.
National Science Teachers Association, Outstanding Science Trade Book of the Year, the Best STEM Book of the Year, all of those things are through the Children's Book Council. So the first year I tried this, I was a member of American Booksellers Association, and I dropped that. Instead, I
Okay.
joined the Children's Book Council. So I have access to all of those awards that matter to the teachers.
Cool. So you'd mentioned that libraries and school librarians, teachers are our primary market.
Yeah.
So how do you reach them? I mean, like yeah, in terms of yes, you have the review, but just having the review doesn't mean they saw it. They do review them and they do go through Kirkus, but they're looking at hundreds of titles. So how do you bring your titles to their attention?
Well, so again, I enter the awards for that teacher group.
Okay.
That's one thing. And then I go to conferences. So I'm in Arkansas. So I would go to the Arkansas Literary Association
Okay.
and the Arkansas Library Association, the Arkansas Science Teachers Association, the Arkansas Social Study, all of those. I go
Okay.
to their conferences. I put in proposals to speak at those conferences. Someone told me, well, New Jersey doesn't have that. And so it's really easy to look up. Yes, they have an association of school librarians. You can find it very easily, and you should propose sessions for those conferences.
Oh, wow. Cool. And so that gets them on your radar and they're like, wow. Well, kind of like, I mean, I know we've known each other for several years, but when I heard you speaking about how what you're doing with children's books, I was kind of like, "Wow, I gotta have her on the podcast. This would be so fun." And then I found out you have a book coming out, even better, so you can help people with the book too. So, um, but I guess the question I had is like getting started. You do the research, you find the association, you see if
Yes.
they've got a conference, you see if you can speak at it and stuff like that. And then obviously they hear you speak and they get excited. And it's that maybe
Yes.
that trust factor or that, oh, I know her, she's great. Oh, and she was talking about this book. I gotta find, like you were talking about, I think
Yes.
one of the science books on the panel. And it was kind of like, oh my God, you could see people in the room shuffling to like, oh, I got to get my hands on that book.
Yes. Yeah, and that's what you do is you go and you speak, and these are the people who are the opinion makers in their field. They're the leaders for the school librarians in their area because they came to this conference. Otherwise, why would they come? So then they go back home and they tell people about it. So
Right.
yeah, you try to make friends. It's not just marketing, it's also making friends with people who have common interests. They want
Right.
books in the hands of kids. I want books in the hands of kids. you
Right.
know, you're just trying to reach out to the community who cares about what you do.
Wow. So you have been extremely successful as a children's book author. Yeah, enough to warrant jealousy and which is, I mean, no, we're never jealous. We're always supportive of one another, but just
Yes,
like,
we are.
wow. But so that this was 75 books. I mean, I imagine like any other author, there are some series or some titles that you just can't keep on the shelf because people are checking them out of libraries and you're selling more copies and they're wearing out and they're having to order new ones. And then there's probably other ones that you're like, wow, why doesn't this one sell? Do you have like some of them in that group that are just kind of
Oh,
ones
yeah.
or
They
twos?
say 80% of what you bring in, it comes from 20% of your products.
Right.
That's just kind
Okay.
of a business thing, and it probably works that way for children's books too.
Okay.
I don't know why these sell and these don't.
Yeah.
I wish all of them sold as well as the others, but I mean, that's just what happens. So, I do try to cycle back through and do promos on the ones that aren't selling really great. Um, you do what you can to support the books.
So, you talked a little bit about kind of the stuff you do with librarians, and we sort of mentioned it, but we never really explicitly said this. When I'm marketing a book of horror stories, I'm
Mhm.
marketing it to people who buy and read horror or read
Right,
horror because library or whatever.
right.
You're marketing not necessarily to the people who are buying the books, but the people who are having the books bought for them. Can you talk about the
Yes.
difference there?
Yeah, you always write for two audiences. You're writing for the kids. It has to please the kids, but you're also writing for the person buying the book, which is a
Right.
teacher, librarian, parent, grandparent in your case.
Yeah.
Um, and so you have to keep in mind both of those things. You have to appeal to both. And it's just a fine line you have to walk. I think most parents want their kids to have great books that they'll like. So they kind of have a little bit of an idea of what the kids are liking. Um, they try to keep up, but you just have to try to please both audiences. It's not always easy, but
Yeah, I can only imagine because it's like focus on the audience, the reader, but the reader's not the one with the credit card,
yes, exactly.
the purchasing
Yeah, I mean,
power.
so I'm very careful. I don't put bad language in it because the parents don't want their kids reading that. Not that I would, anyway. I
That
mean, so you
makes
have to
sense.
think about, staying away from controversial things unless that
Right.
really is your kind of book. Um, and how do you appeal to those parents who are protective of their children and yet they
Right.
want them to have a wide reading experience?
Okay. So let's also now talk about nonfiction versus fiction because you've had some very successful nonfiction books like Science and for Kids, and the awards that you've gotten seem most of them seem to have been related to your nonfiction work, which very much pleases educators and kids
Yes.
learn and have fun. Are there, I guess there's differences in terms of the marketing for the nonfiction versus like fiction, right?
There is some, but basically it's still reaching out to the same people. But what I am doing is I'm paying attention to curriculums. So
Ah,
there is a
okay.
National Science Teachers Association, Next Gen Science Standards in the US. And so I'm making sure that my books fit that curriculum somewhere in elementary school from second to fifth grade. So I'm
Okay.
just making sure that there is a standard that says you need to study sound. And
Okay.
so my book about sound called Klang is the story of a German scientist who goes to Napoleon's court and entertains Napoleon with his sound experiments, and then Napoleon supports his work.
Is this actually based on reality? Are we learning
Yes,
history here too?
yes.
That is so cool. I love it. It's like we're learning about science and sound, but we're also catching a little bit of history there too.
A little
That's
bit of
you're
history,
sneaking in
yes.
some more learning there, aren't you?
Yeah, so and it's also a lot of fun. I have a series about animals called Another Extraordinary Animal, and for those, all except one, I got to talk to the scientists in the field.
Oh,
So
wow.
there's one about a Galapagos tortoise, and I talked to the lady who was the lead herpetologist in the Galapagos Islands for over 35 years. And
Wow.
she said, yes, a children's book sounds great. I got to interview her and Zoom with her, and the book came out, got a starred review, and then I heard she had passed away, but she
Oh.
got that starred review first.
Oh, so she got to see that there was a starred
Yeah,
review.
yeah,
Oh, that's fantastic. That
yeah.
is
So I've
amazing.
talked to amazing scientists in the field. Yeah,
Oh, wow. So, you hire illustrators,
yes,
but there are those who are artistically inclined.
yes.
Um, Recommendations, like is it worth doing at all, or because I mean because you take some of that work that another expert does, that
Mhm.
means you can now write the next book while they're working on the art for the first one. Does that, I guess, increase your productivity by having a collaborator?
Yes. It increases my productivity by allowing the illustrator to go off and do their work. So if you're going to do all of it yourself, yeah, you'll keep more of the profits, you'll have more control of the way the books look, that sort of thing. And the thing is, you have to be excellent in both the text and the illustration.
Yeah, of
Some
course.
people are excellent in the text, and their illustration is high school art.
Yeah,
In order to do well, you've got to have both of them at an expert level, and
right.
that's difficult.
Yeah, I can imagine. And then the other thing, I remember talking to an author whose father's an illustrator, and he's a great illustrator and he's a great writer, but neither one of them could do layout. So they actually paid for someone to
Yeah.
do the lettering, right?
Oh,
Which
yeah, yeah.
just to make it look nicer.
Yeah,
So,
so I did a nonfiction this year about the endangered horse species, the Przewalski horse, and it's all photo illustrated. So I did hire a designer from Reedsy to do that book.
okay,
Yeah.
so sometimes there's that extra layer, and you taught yourself Adobe, and that may be where I just going to use someone to lay this book out for me, right?
Yeah, it just needed a professional layout, and I knew I
Yeah.
couldn't do that. When I get art that's already done and all I'm doing is adding text, I can do that.
Yeah, you've done that enough times that you know. And
Yeah.
you know, the other thing too is because I'm sure you know the market and you've read the books, you know what they look like and what
Yes.
looks like it fits and what is kind of like, well, that's a little
Yes.
weird.
But when I started working on the photo illustrated one, it just needed that extra level. So I know that there are people in the industry. Reedsy is a great marketplace for finding professionals of all kinds, and I
Right.
can go there and find the extra that I need.
So I'm going to put you and myself on the spot here. So, I've had this podcast for 8 years. There's lots of podcasts for writers, and they tend to be very generic and not offer the right advice for children's authors, which I'm very aware of the holes that I leave. So, what's one of the things that frustrates you most about common self-publishing advice that you wish more people would just say, "Oh, for God's sakes, just be inclusive." Like, that would include
Yeah.
something that would be useful for a children's book author to know.
Now, the most frustrating thing to me is the comment, "Oh, just go do school visits." Yes, you can do school visits. Yes, you can make money doing that, but that requires your physical presence. So you cannot scale that up. There's only,
Okay.
I don't know, 120 days a year you could possibly do that because you
Okay.
got to take the summer off and you got to take weekends off, and
Right.
you
Yeah.
cannot scale it up. Instead, I work to find places that will sell my books in bulk. So I had a book come out last year, Magnet, and like a month after it came out, I got an order for 600 copies. There was a public television station who wanted to give it away for an event.
Wow.
And so that's the kind of sales I need. I don't need going to a school, being there all day long, traveling to a school, being there all day long, being on stage all day long, and selling 25 bucks. You
Yeah.
know, that doesn't scale for me.
Okay. What about
Yeah.
in-person events like shows? Like, does that?
Yeah, you can do those. So all of those work. It's just if you're still doing that 10 years from now, I'm sorry for you.
Yeah.
That's really great in the beginning to get your foot out there and to say to for one thing, you want to meet the teachers. You want to say to them, where do you buy books? What do you think about this book? What would you have done
Oh, so
different?
you're learning while you're doing this. So you're
Yeah,
actually
absolutely.
double
Plus, you're
dipping
also
in the
reading the
benefit
book
there.
to kids, and you're getting the kids' live reaction to it. So, in the first 5 to 10 years, yeah, go do school visits. You'll make
Right.
money. You'll meet your audience. You'll meet your people who buy the books. But if you're still doing it in 10 years, you're doing something wrong, in my opinion.
Cool. So let's talk. We parked the idea of the translation that you just did, where they wanted the InDesign files. So,
Yeah.
how did you find them, and was it based on the success you had in English?
Partly yes. So I have an agent in China, is what
Ah,
I yes. And they've done really well for me. They sold a 5 book series to China. Unfortunately, they never exercised the option. So after 5 years, I was free to resell it um,
okay.
and just sold 9 book series. They sold books to Korea for me.
Wow.
So the IBPA says that DropCap is an agency now that deals with a lot of
Yep.
translations, and they didn't do very well for me for picture books.
Right.
But I hear they're good for adult nonfiction.
Right.
But
So you still have an agent, or you did this without the agent? The
well, the Chinese agent made the sale for me.
made the sale for you. How did you find that agent? You just bumped into them at a teachers conference, or?
Research.
Research. So someone like you found someone online doing research and reached out to them and said, "Hey, I've got sales in English. Here's my sales. Would you represent my foreign language
I
rights?"
think
Or
actually they reached out to me and said, "Hey, are you interested?" And then I did a lot of research.
really? And then you
Yeah,
had to make
so
sure they weren't a scam artist, right?
right, right. So I found actually a PhD. Somebody did their PhD. Somebody from Canada did a PhD thing on this agency. Should you use it or not for translations? So I thought, yeah, they're pretty legit. If a
Sweet.
PhD candidate is doing their
Oh,
dissertation on
man.
it, so I did
Awesome.
a lot of research, and they've been good for me.
Cool. Cool.
Yeah.
Okay, so this book is coming out in January of 2026, and that's when most people will have most of the world will have access to it.
Yes.
But as I understand it, you are running a Kickstarter in the end of the summer, early fall
Yes.
2025 for this.
So September 15th to October 6th, it'll be a Kickstarter. And I'm very excited about it. There are 5 additional books that'll go with it.
Ooh, what do you mean?
How to write children's picture books, novel metamorphosis, uncommon ways to revise, um, start your novel, things like that.
So these are previous books that you've already written
Yes,
for writers, and now this is
yes,
the new one, and then that's just bonus. So
yes,
I'm going to try and get this episode out before the Kickstarter's over, so my listeners have a chance to go benefit. Because I'm assuming they not only get access to the book early, but they get access to some other cool books for a
yes,
great price.
yes.
Cool. Awesome. And so, awesome. All right. So again, the book is Publish, Find Surprising Success Self-Publishing Your Children's Books. Darcy, where can people find out more about you? Check out your books online, check out your blog, all those awesome things that you had mentioned before.
Oh, thanks. If you're interested in self-publishing, it's indiekidsbooks.com. And if you want to buy my books, it's mimshousebooks.com, MIMSHOUSE books.com.
Awesome. And those links will be at the show notes at starkreflections.ca. Darcy, thanks so much for hanging out with me today.
Thanks, Mark. This has been fun.
Okay, a couple things to reflect on. The first thing is something that I think is easy to forget, and it's challenging enough when you're thinking about marketing your book and you want to think about the audience. And there's a difference in terms of marketing children's books. So it's knowing that the people, as Darcy spoke about, knowing that the people who are reading or being read to are not the same people that you're selling to. So you're selling to parents, you're selling to grandparents, you're selling to aunts and uncles and friends of the family, you're selling to teachers, and you're selling to librarians for the children. So there's an intermediary there, which makes it a bit more challenging when you're doing your marketing. So that's something to be aware of. And that kind of leads to the second reflection is Darcy talked about, going to the schools and stuff. Like, it's not sustainable, right? You can only be at one school at a time and interacting with librarians and stuff. And I'll be honest, that's a really great place to be. But she did it in a very brilliantly strategic way. When she was at the schools, she was asking the teachers, she was asking the librarians where and how they buy books. She was doing market research, not just what are you looking for, but how do you buy books? How do you make these decisions? So she was very business-minded, very business-oriented in that regard. And that's why, so she's paying for reviews, like Kirkus reviews, etc., cost money. But she knows that that's what they're reading. So instead of, throwing money at an Amazon ad, which may or may not work, when you pay for a Kirkus review, and they'll do an honest review, so if it sucks, they're going to say it sucks. But if it's great, like Darcy's books are, they're going to give it starred reviews. And that's going to get the attention of librarians. That's going to get the attention of teachers. And so, sending those copies off, those reading copies off, paying to get those books reviewed in trade journals is very helpful in her journey. So is, in that scalability faction that she mentioned, is finding, where she can sell in bulk. Right? Selling a class set as opposed to one book at a time is a really significant step up. So if you're a children's book author, and again, and I do admit, there's not a lot of marketing tips and advice for children's book authors. So I'm really glad that Darcy's putting her knowledge into this book. And I think there's some other books in this series that look like they're coming out when I was looking at them online. That's something for you to consider, and how you're going to leverage that, and how you may scale in a different way. Because in this realm, unlike in, with novels for a lot of indie authors, it's going to be a physical book game as well. So I'm really appreciative that Darcy took the time to chat with me. It was great to see Darcy. I can't believe, and again, it was really close to where I am now. I'm just north of Pennsylvania right now. The Keswick Theater is where the Bubba Bash is taking place that I mentioned in the opening. And I'm near Ambler, Pennsylvania, just between Philadelphia and Ambler, I guess, where I am, just off the main highway, not too far from the Keswick Theater, which is a beautiful, gorgeous historic theater. So it was kind of cool that I'm recording this not too far from where I saw Darcy when we were both at the American Library Association conference, which was in downtown Philadelphia, all these months later. So maybe it is fitting that I waited this long. So I'm back, baby, back in Pennsylvania. Okay, I'm rambling now. All right, that is it for my reflection. That is it for this episode. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Thank you so much for listening. I appreciate having you here, and I will hopefully be connecting with you very shortly in just a week's time. So until next week, and until next episode, this is, as always, Mark Leslie Lefebvre wishing you great writing and good Stark reflections.
Thank you for listening to the Stark Reflections podcast. You can find show notes for each episode at starkreflections.ca.
The music for this podcast, Laser Groove, was composed and produced by Kevin MacLeod. Check out more of Kevin's great music at incomptech.com.